Make sure to download the files from Talon and unzip them. LayOut is used to create the 2D drawings for construction using the 3D model in SketchUp. A lot of students I've had in the past say, oh, I just import my SketchUp model into Revit and then add notes, or vice versa. I did my model in Revit and I imported it now into SketchUp. Stay in SketchUp, stay in Revit, or stay in AutoCAD, or stay in whatever program you're at, and use the program tools there. The best process is to import into LayOut from SketchUp and use the tools in LayOut to notate a drawing. Importing into LayOut from SketchUp is basically taking a 3D model and putting it onto a 2D space and noting it up. So and all those kind of notes that we need to make a drawing understandable should be done in LayOut. Here's the following examples from professionals of what can be done using LayOut. So this model is in SketchUp, and this photograph is probably a JPEG. And then they're just showing the client what it's going to look like in its space. So here's what it looks like originally. They're going to doctor up their front to make it look nice. And this is what it looks like in 3D. So this is how this person did it. Another example. So this is a SketchUp model, 3D model that is like a 2D picture. The front view, the side view, and so forth. Here's a little perspective view of the whole project and how it's going to look. And these are some floor plans. These floor plans are of this project. In other words, it's still a SketchUp. We're going to make our SketchUp model look like this. This one here, I can see this sheet being an interior design project, right? Because you're looking down on the space here for plan view, and then you can show some interior scenes and talk about it, right? So that's kind of an interesting kind of layout. This person also had some wall sections because they were doing, this was an addition or something like that. So I have some wall sections, how this thing is being built. They're all done in SketchUp. And this is a link, and you're welcome to look at this link. It's Nick Saunders has some great ideas and has some really wonderful looking, very artistic working drawings for his project.
I'm Nick Sonder. I am the sole proprietor of Nicholas Sonder Architect. When I model a house, I actually do model everything in the house. The house model generates all the floor plans, the reflected ceiling plans, the roof plans, every single section between 10 and 15 building sections, because the section tool's so awesome in SketchUp. I generate every interior elevation, and I also, for interior elevations, I use the section tool as well, so I can set it in 2D. So it's a lot of detail that I can export out of any one given model. Detailing is something that I've really had a lot of fun with in SketchUp. On a typical house, I usually have anywhere between 60 and 90 details.
So our assignment for this session is to make a PDF of this kitchen design using SketchUp and LayOut together. And this assignment is worth 3 points, and it can receive partial credit. We'll be following roughly the steps from this PDF that is in your module folder also. Let's start with the model. So we're going to start with setting up our SketchUp model. So let's go ahead and open up our SketchUp model. One of the first things I want you to make sure you do is to check your scene tab and make sure that all these items are checked off. And so we're going to make a plan view first. We're going to work on the plan. That's what we're going to spend a lot of time doing that. And so we need to make a section cut. Hover over this and click. And if you put your cursor over, just hover over the top of the walls here, it'll be in the blue plane. If you put it at different angles, it'll be whatever angle that is. Blue is what we want. Click, and it'll say a section plane. Right now, whatever name it gives is fine. Type in M for move. I can move it, click, and move down in the blue. And I want to be basically above the countertop and seeing the window, but below the upper cabinets, and then click. So it looks something like that. Typically, you can imagine a cutting plane about 4 foot above the ground, and that's where it will put us. Once you get to this level, I just click away so it's not selected. Because you can have more than one section plane in a model. Then let's look straight down on this view, because we're going to look straight down. And you can see we still have perspective mode going on. We want to go to camera parallel projection. So then the next thing I want to do is I don't want that orange lines around there. So I'm going to make this not visible. This displays the planes. I don't want the planes. I want it to be cut. I just don't want it to display the planes. So you can see, depending on which buttons of these I select will depend on what I see on my model. And if I have to move this plane up or down or change it, I want to see it so I can do that. Next thing I want to work on is to get rid of this green background. I would like to have it to be the white background. And I need to get rid of this texture, with this material here, because we're not going to want that. So let's go here and go to our styles. And in our styles, click on default styles if we need to. And the third one over is called construction document style. That gives us a white background. And it changes some of the settings of the line work and the line types. Additionally, I want to take off this display section fill. Let's go ahead and take that off. Because if I don't see my fireplace, I can't see my fireplace if I have it on. So I take it off so I can see my fireplace opening here. I don't want materials. Let's say I could have materials. Some people do that. In my own office, I typically have my materials visible. For this project, we're not going to have materials visible. So we'll click on hidden line view. So we now have just white and black line. So this all has to be done to set up our model, to get it ready to go to the layout program. Then last, under tags, take off door. Right now we're seeing our cut through of the doors. So take off door, and that opens it up. These doors that are arced like this is what we plan to see in plans, and that is under the CAD doors tag. And so when we had it before in 3D view, I had that tag not visible. So for scenes, make sure that all these are checked. Make sure all these are checked for scenes, and make a new scene. This is ready to be made a scene now. Save it as a new style if asked. I always do that as a safety measure, make sure I don't ruin a style I already have. At the end, I would purge the model, and so we would have clean it up. And I'm gonna call this scene, I believe I called it floor plan. And I'm gonna go to X-ray view, this button right here. And that's gonna show me what's happening underneath the countertops, which I'm gonna wanna have. I'm gonna have that information on my layout plan. Under scenes, make a new scene. Save as a new style. We'll call it under counter. This is a complete architectural PDF for this particular cabin plan view. This is the kind of notes we would have all over it. The model is like this. At this point, we're done with the SketchUp model. We've made it graphically look like this, and we're just going to focus on just the kitchen area. Let's save the file. So let's open up Layout by clicking the icon on the desktop or going to the Start menu and typing Layout. The program should appear. Click on it to start. You can also go to File, Send to Layout. That'll automatically open up the Layout program, and whatever scene you've got open will automatically be there. It opens like usual. Go ahead and click on Open File. Go to your SketchUp folder, Lectures, go to the Module 12, Layout, and go to My Scrapbooks first. Aerial.layout. If you take a look at this, this is pretty similar to SketchUp, right? We've got a palette over here, different things you can open and close, different options, of course, but we still have a very similar setup here. And up at the top, we've got icons and menu bars, and some of them even look the same. This is a file that has many different graphics so you can use in the layout program. And so we're going to save these onto your system so you can have it through what's called scrapbooks. If you go over here to the side under Pages,
You can see all the different kinds of standard wordings and reference symbols and so forth can be found in typical documents. And this is architectural, so I've got things like elevation notes, wall section notes, electrical, plumbing, so forth. So it's got a lot of different pages. And we'll save this to your program so you can have it down here in scrapbooks. Let's go to File, Save as Scrapbook. And you can put either one of those places. I'm going to leave it at the default. We'll call it Arial, my initials. Click OK. And now we've got that file in the system labeled Arial with my initials. You can see the kind of scrapbooks are already in SketchUp here. We've got maybe some cars, things like that. You can go to this little button here. If you click on it, you see what they've got. You can just drag these things right in here and there'll be something there. Some graphic will come in and we can size it however we need. What's nice is that now we've got ours in there as well. And so these graphics work the same way. You just click and drag them in. When you let go, there they are. And you can see all the different pages by clicking on this button right here. We can close out of this file now. Don't save these changes because we've messed around with this. And let's go File, Open. And this time let's open up something else. In the Layout folder, there's something called My Templates. And one of them is the one we'll be using to set up our sheets, the KCC 8.5 by 11. Click Open. Let's go ahead and do File, Save As, and come out of the module 12, back to our SketchUp folder, go to our assignments, and scroll down, and module 12, open that up. Let's save this as
Cabin Kitchen.
And then your initials. And now we can modify this sheet as needed. Zoom up to the corner and open up the Layers palette.
Information on here. These are basically text boxes I created for you. So now I can just double click on that sheet name here. When you double click into the text box, you may get an error message that the font is missing. The font used was Arial Narrow. You can just try and use regular Arial. In addition, this video shows the Arch Quick Narrow font. Just use the Arial Narrow font if you have it. Otherwise, just regular Arial every time the Arch Quick font is noted. So for the sheet name, I'm going to type in here floor plan and island elevations. This is like a text box in Word. You just type it in there. When I click away, it flips itself back upright. Down here at the bottom, drawn by, put in like your last name or your initials, your whole name if it fits there. Project number, every office does it differently. We're going to call this 102-KCC. The date is a little different. It already came in with the correct date. And if I click on it, I see some funky text. That is auto text. We can access it through File, Document Setup, and we can see right here auto text and date modified. That's the current date of this video. So every time I open up this file, I will have that current date and it will always be updated. I could also put some other ones in here as well. So for example, if I type in with the text box, you don't need to do this. If I type in the text box, this caret, and then capital file, capital name, and end caret, and click away, it'll show me the name of my project file, just like it says here. We can also make a few custom text information for our project. Go ahead and close this and undo that text box. This one here, double click. It's going to be capital I, 1.01 else. And you click away, the box goes away. I mean, the little bounding box. There are some naming conventions for CAD standards. And so here's some designations that we would want to put in here. So the first thing would be the letter and then a number. And the letter defines the discipline. So A is for architectural work, C for civil, and so forth. I is for interiors, right? So this is an interiors project. Interior cabinetry and stuff could be an interiors project. And in this case, we're saying it is, and so it's going to be I. But you can see some of the typical letter designations given out. Over here for the sheet type is the number that comes after that, and it depends on what the number starts from. So 1.01 to 1.99 are all plans, either floor plans, ceiling plans, framing plans, whatever. Anything that starts with a 2 are elevations. Starting with 3 are sections. You know, large scale plans and elevations that are not detailed start with 4, and so forth, so on. So all these general notes and stuff would have a 0 start. So if I look at a number, like I say, hey, look what's on sheet A 1.02. Well, that should tell you that it's an architectural floor plan because it's an A. And that's the second floor because it's 02, but it's a floor plan because it's a 1. Right? A is for architectural, 1's for floor plan, 02 is the second of them. Probably the second floor. It's probably sheet number 2 of that whole thing, right? If I say A 4.01, oh, it's probably an architectural. And it is a 4, so it's a large scale plan or an interior elevation or something, right? 4 would be interior elevations. It's the first sheet of the interior elevation sheets, and so forth and so on. So just kind of shows you how that numbering tells you what it is. So because it's 1.01, it's our first floor plan sheet. It's an interior floor plan. While changing some of this text, your text box might show up with a little red arrow and perhaps the numbers not quite fitting in. If that is the case, it basically means that your font substitution is wider than the available space in the text box. For the sake of this lecture, you could just type in I1 so that it fits. This over here, instead of 01, we're going to actually have 3 sheets when we're done, hopefully. Right? And then at the top for project name and address, we're going to call it Cabin Kitchen. Cabin Kitchen. And then also for project address, I'm just going to type in 102 Jones, Cedar Rapids. Oops, better spell it right. Cedar Rapids. Okay. Click File Save. It's always a good idea to save often. Over here on the side for layers, let's hit the plus sign, make a new layer. And let's call it Viewport. Call it Viewport. You have to double click inside there and type in Viewport. And then click away and it should stick. Notice we got a little pencil next to it. That little pencil symbol means it's the active layer, the current layer that's being worked on. That we have. It automatically defaulted to that. And then I want the order of these views to be what I want visible over what I don't want visible. So viewport should come up to the top. So click and drag to bring it to the top. Now we're going to go to File, Insert, and go find where you have your cabin, that cabin file that we just made. By the way, if you don't see this picture on the side of your insert, it's this little button here, and that gives you a kind of pretty view of what you see there. Click on Open. It'll come in looking something like this. So viewport's active. So this is on the viewport layer. A SketchUp model can be inserted into layout in various graphic representations. One of them is a raster. We talked about raster images, right? When you zoom up to a raster image, it becomes pixelated. This is one of the fastest ways to bring in a SketchUp model into layout. Vector takes a little bit more processing power, but not much. But what you do lose is you lose all the textures that you have. So example, it turned into just this standard color. So this image showing these kind of wood tones became this. But it's a vector. So when you zoom up, zoom up, zoom up, it's sharp, crisp lines. And then this one down here is hybrid. where you're showing both. So this would be the most intensive processor. It's really going to take up a lot of energy. It's going to take a long time to reload, regenerate, and so forth. So typically this is good enough for what we're doing, for printing and so forth. But sometimes you might need to have that precision, especially with zoom up. If you click on SketchUp model, it should say the scene is under counter. That's our last scene that we had working on it. It would say raster. These are where you change the settings. Raster is good. This should all stay that same way here. Down at the bottom, you may or may not have background checked off. I tend to like it not be checked for background. If you have background tab checked, it would be all white. And in this case, it doesn't matter. If you want to keep it white, that's fine with me. In my work, I like to have it be kind of see-through-ish like this. And then I'm going to change the scale here. So right now, I'm seeing the whole image. I'm going to change the scale here to ½ inch equals a foot. You might have to scroll up or down to get to that. ½ inch equals a foot. That's ½ inch equals a foot. It's going to look like this all of a sudden. Once you pick that scale, this should be locked on preserve scale on resize. Because as I make this bounding box bigger or smaller, I don't want to change the scale. If I don't have that checked, the image will scale and it will scale again. So now you have these grips here, and it's like grips in the graphics in Word. Just kind of grab the grips and you want to kind of drag it open. I'm going to have to open this way. I want to see that L shape of the cabinet. And then click and drag over here. So I'm just clicking and dragging. Something like this. When I click away from the image, I don't get the box anymore. When I click on the image, I do. Also, you notice when I click on the image, you get the up and down arrow for move. So I can move in position. If I click and drag, I'm moving it. So click and drag. You can see you can move it. Then on top of that, I've got a crosshairs and a line and a little circle. If I put my cursor on over that circle, I get this rotate symbol, like again, like SketchUp. Click and drag upwards, and we'll type it to 90, or I can just type in 90. Let go of and type in 90, press enter, and it'll straighten it up like that. Now, I'm only doing this because I think it fits better on the page, this orientation. Click away. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go to my viewport layer, and I'm going to lock it. We're going to be drawing on this viewport layer. We're going to be changing things and so forth. And I don't want to move or erase this piece. It's like the components in SketchUp when we lock them in place so we don't move them. Same idea. I'm going to lock this. So now this viewport's locked. I can't put my pencil here until I unlock it. I can't make it the active layer again until I unlock it. And you can unlock it, move it, position again too. The next thing I want to do, this is my own personal preference. Under Arrange, we've got some options here. So click under Arrange tab. Right now we have Object Snap turned on and Grid Snap turned on, which means anything I do will snap to the grid as well as to the object if there's an object to snap to. I don't want to put the Grid Snap on. I want it off. Okay, so all I'll do is put my cursor down here and click on Grid Snap on, and now it's off. You're going to say, how do I know that? Well, if you click on Arrange again, it'll show like that. I do want Object Snap on. So if you click on Arrange now and it says Grid Snap off, don't click on that down there below anymore. We're done. The snapping is off. I do want to snap to the object. I don't want to snap to the grid. So now we'll make a new layer. Click on the plus over here, and we'll call it Graphics. And click away, and it looks good. And I want the graphics to be above my viewport. It's important, these layers, because they create what's visible. It's like pieces of paper on top of each other. So you want certain papers on, you want certain things visible over other things. And I want my graphics to be visible. And then what I want to do is, you can see that you might want to zoom up by using the scroll wheel. You might want to zoom up to the drawing here. We're showing what's happening underneath the countertops. So I'm seeing the base cabinet and all this. That's great. See the dishwasher over here. That's fine. The problem is I'm also seeing the toe kick. I don't want to see the toe kick. And I'm also seeing some other things I just don't want to see. The handles of the doorknobs. If I was drawing this with a pencil and paper, or if I was looking at a CAD drawing, I typically would not see that in the two-dimensional work. It's just too much detail on there. I do want it in my SketchUp model. I don't want to see it here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace over them with the rectangle and the line tool. And so I'll have them the way I want them to look like, and I can snap to them so they'll be the right size. So here's a rectangle tool. Click on that. And now before I draw anything, I need to set up what this rectangle is going to look like. So I've got to go to the shape style. We don't want fill, so make sure fill is not selected. We're not going to want fill in here. Fill means coloring in the inside of the shape. We don't have a pattern, so don't worry about that. Stroke here, yeah, we need to have a stroke. It's got to be a line. We got to see a line. 0.5 is fine. 1x is fine. The color of the line is black. If we click on this box, we get to this thing. We can change the color of the line to be something other than black, right? Here, though, I'm going to change it to this first one, the hidden line, because it's going to be hidden. The countertop is solid line. Underneath it's going to be hidden line. So I'm going to click over here, like right here, click. I'm going to go over here to the front face of my appliance, click, and there it is. It should look something like this. So we have no fill, so you should be seeing the underneath area of the appliance and everything. So I'm going to click the line tool or type in L for line. Make sure the settings are the same, that fill is not selected and all that. And I'm just going to click on the outside edge of the cabinetry. I'm going to click here, click, click, click. Press escape or the space bar. And for over here, type in L for line to get it back to line tool again, click, 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 press the space bar, and that's that. So those are the cabinet lines I drew, and they're dashed. Type in R for rectangle. So remember, the keyboard shortcuts still work, don't they? Those SketchUp shortcuts are still working by default, and we can build our own as well. I'm going to do a rectangle from here to here. Right. Another rectangle from here to here. Another rectangle from here to here. So I made all these rectangles. Yeah, all those little rectangles. I could also do lines. I could do lines and go around the perimeter and stuff like that. I could do that too. That's fine. I just did rectangles. I thought it'd be fast to get them done. And I snap to the object. That's why I like that object snap a lot. I'm not going to snap to that grid. So the lecture talks about the importance of the layering. So in this example, graphics is over viewport, and I can see my rectangle. Here, I can't see my rectangle, even though I drew it, because why? I drew it with graphics under viewport. You see the difference? So it's there, it's just underneath the viewport, and the viewport's not letting me see what's underneath. You can also arrange within a layer by right-clicking on the line and then noting on the dialog box that comes up where it should be within the layer. So for example, within the graphics layer, I can arrange a certain line to be in front or behind other lines within that same layer. If you click on that, in this rectangle here, we have those dots like that. We have the scale. We can resize it if we did the wrong size dishwasher, grabbed the wrong thing, or we need to rotate it or something like that. I don't know. The graphics all have that. You can always change the graphics. There's always some sort of rotation symbol or things like that. Let's save this, file save. We want to add some more lines. For example, there's a vault in here. There's upper cabinets. I'd like to record that somehow on this drawing. So I got to go back to my SketchUp model. From this point forward, we will not pan, move, zoom, anything. This stays fixed at this point. So make sure, click on this under counter scene tab, all right, and make sure this is exactly how it is. And we're going to make a new scene here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this section, and what's going to happen is we'll see all the way through it. See, we still have X-ray on, so I'm going to see all of my line work above. So here's the upper cabinets, as well as the vault, as well as the under cabinets too, because it's X-ray mode, right? Hit the plus sign here. Make sure these are all clicked. They should be clicked. Hit the plus sign here. Save as a new style. Let's call that ceiling, because I'm seeing the ceiling here. Again, the naming is how you want it named. I just think that makes sense for me to locate things, to call it that. So if I click on under counter, the section's cut, floor plan, the section's cut with not being X-ray mode. Click on ceiling, we got X-ray mode, we've got no section, and we're seeing the ceiling and the upper cabinets. And we save this file. Go back to layout, and now we've got to say, hey, the file's been updated. The file's been changed. So go to File, Document Setup, References, and you should see these references in your document setup. The first one, called the Kirkwood seal, I would unlink it because you don't have that seal. As a matter of fact, I don't even have it in the same spot anymore. So I would just unlink it and it becomes an embedded image, not a big deal. Cabin kitchen, we do want that linked, but it says it's out of date, and it is. We've just saved it. So click on Update. And at first, you're not going to notice anything different, but we now have another scene to work with, and it's updated. If we go to SketchUp Model, instead of Under Counter, click this down triangle and select Ceiling. It wouldn't be there before. If you've seen this before we updated it, it wouldn't have ceiling on here. So click on Ceiling, and we should have the ceiling here. And it should line up perfectly exactly here because we didn't pan or zoom it. And now we see that here's that ceiling right here. And so we're going to work with that next. Line tool, or type in L for line, or click the line tool. And then over here, we have our strokes by default, how they're going to be. For a ceiling, you want that to be a center line. When you have those vaults like that, you're going to want that to be a center line. If it was like a tray ceiling, it could stay hidden, but we want this to be a center line. So click this down triangle here and go to this one. This is the center line. Long dash, short dash, long dash, short dash. So that's what I want. And in this case, the spacing, I think is a little too long. That's personal preference. But I think the one by line spacing just gets really long lines. I'm going to type 0.5 there. So I'm kind of showing you how to change certain parts of this. The width is fine. The stroke of 0.5 is fine. The width is fine. It's just the line length I'd like a little tighter. So I'm going to click here, click, go up here, click. And at first, nothing's going to happen. If you zoom up a little bit, well, it's kind of hard to see. It's there. The line's been drawn. It's just, you can, if I scroll around, eventually I see like a little dashy line next to that solid line. And that's okay. I'm not going to keep that there. I'm using these lines in the model as a guide for my tracing. I also want to show these upper cabinets because not everywhere is going to be an upper cabinet. I don't need to show the molding in the top. So I'm going to go back and switch it back to a hidden line, a dashed line. And I'm going to go ahead and keep it as 0.5. So remember, this lower line down here was at scale 1. And that way we'll distinguish the upper dash lines from the under counter dash lines by having a different line length. Then I'm just going to trace it using the thing. I'm just going to trace the perimeter. So I'm going to click here, here, here. Now at this point, I'm going to kind of hover a little bit here and kind of try to line up a little bit with the line below. Click. So that's going to be a little bit of a guesstimate. Go down in the green here to this line here. Click. Come out to this one. Press Escape or the spacebar when done. So this is what I traced here. So if you want to take a look, see that, that's what I traced. Now, if you wanted to trace the upper cabinets going back to the line back in here, or what, yeah, that's fine too. But this is what I traced for here. I'm just going to show an edge. I'm going to show interior elevations of this. They'll tell you all the size of the cabinets and all. And I'm going to also trace this over here. When I'm done, hit the space bar or hit escape. Now this one, I made a little mistake. My mistake is right here. That should have been 90 degrees, and it isn't because I snapped to the wrong thing by mistake. But that's okay. I'm going to fix it next. My dash line, I snapped to the wrong thing. So I'm going to double click. When you double click on a line, you get the endpoints of the line. So I got these little dots for the endpoints. I'm just going to click and drag this one over to here and done. See, because you have these little dots on the endpoint. So if ever you have a line that's not quite right, you can click on the endpoints of that line and reposition. So that looks good. I don't want to see the ceiling anymore. I just want to see the floor plan now. So I'm going to go to the viewport and unlock it, then go to the SketchUp model group and select the model itself. Select that on the viewport. Instead of having a ceiling, I'm going to click this down triangle and select floor plan. And look what happens. All my hidden lines are there. All my center lines are there in the right graphic that I choose as an office to present it. Now that we've got it in this view, I'm going to go ahead and lock it back up again. I'm going to save this. The lecture shows that we could possibly change these lines that we had before, make a layer called hidden, make that a hidden line type, and it looks like this. So we never really played with this too much in SketchUp, but you can change those line types by just clicking on this and changing it. This is an alternate we could do. I prefer doing it my way, drawing over it. Here's the difference. Here's what it looks like when we trace them. Here's what it looks like when we use the hidden style. We still get the toe kick, we still get the doorknobs and all that kind of stuff. So it'd be even more visibility thinking to get it to look what I would expect it to look like. All right, so let's make some layers here. So make a new layer. Let's call this one notes, let's say. And then make another layer and call it dims. If you need to, just click and drag them to be in position. Typically, I like notes and dimensions to be above the graphics, above the viewports. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put some dimensions. That's important to have here. And again, these are the things, dimensions and notes you're going to want on layout. You don't want them on SketchUp. You want them on layout. It's up in here. So here's for text, just like a little text box. This is the text box with the leader, and this is dimensions. So click on the dimensions, and that turns our cursor to a pencil with a little dimension string stuck to it. We need to modify it to be how we want it to be. Some defaults are good, but we want it to look a certain way. So on the side here, there's a grouping called dimension style. So click on that. So we click dimension first, click this dimension button first, then go over here, go to dimension style. All right, so this first button should be selected. This tells us how we want our number, above the line, centered, or below the line. Now, I've seen above the line and centered. I've never seen below the line, but there might be a case where that's the case. The next one, we want the third button pressed over, the align button. This says basically, how do you want that number shown? What orientation? Squared, angles, whatever. I want it aligned with the angle. So if it's an angle dimension, I want the number to be at an angle. And then the last one, I'm just going to click this first button, feet and inches, because it's feet and inches. The other one's metric, millimeters, no, metric. This feet and inches. This length, I want it to be architectural. The precision, 1/8 is good enough for our drawing purposes. I have drawn at 1/64, and sometimes that's good, but 1/8 is what we're going to use for this project. And this is basically how far these gaps and so forth are away from the image and things like that. I'm leaving them for the defaults. They're pretty good. So we've got dimension styles to be set. The other thing that needs to be set is our text style. So click on text style, and we want to scroll up. If you have Arch Quick Narrow, let's use that because that's how I've gotten the thing set up. If not, just use Arial. And then I've used a 12-point font. So Arch Quick, regular 12-point font. And then we need to also do shape style because dimensions have these little ticks at the end, one or the other. It defaults to arrows, and although some firms use arrows, we're going to use ticks in ours. So I'm going to change that to this angled tick here, and that's this one here. with the angle facing, like the one underneath the question mark on the keyboard. The same thing for the other side. And then the ticks are going to be 1. This tells us how big those textures are going to be. 1 and 0.5 could be that. By the way, I also seen people use dimensions and notes on a different color, like a red. They stand right out. They stand out different than the drawing. So we've got font, arch, quick, narrow, regular, 12 point. We've got dimension style, above the line, angled with a line, feet and inches, architectural, 1/8. Shape style, stroke, 0.5, pictures 1, 2.2 point for start arrow, end arrow, and having the ticks. I also want to change auto scale to be 1/2 inch equals a foot. I don't want it to use auto scale. I found that is problematic because after the first or second dimension, it switches to scale of 1 to 1. That means we just be focused. We have to be focused on making sure that the scale drawing is the scale of the image and the scale of the dimensions. We want to tell the cabinet run. So from here, from this edge here, that's the edge of the wall, to this edge here where the stove is where I want to go. So I'm going to click, move my mouse to here, click, and move away down here, like about here. Not too far down, click. So it takes 3 clicks for the first one. Now for the second, third, and fourth, you just click. So double click here, and then double click at the end of the cabinet run, and then double click at the countertop, of the countertop. So once you put the first string in, you have to be click, 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 3 clicks to get the first one, then double click the second, double click, and it keeps going on that same line. If by mistake when dimensioning, one of your dimensions get off, the dimension got slipped, it didn't quite fall right or didn't snap to the right thing, if you click on the dimension, you can click on the endpoints of this and kind of drag them to be the right size, right location. So you can adjust them after you put them in. Just as you can change the location of the extension lines, you can also move the text around by clicking and dragging on the text. Just double click on it and then click and drag the text box and let go. And this one here, this number is below the line. That is not an appropriate location for a dimension. It should be above the line always, either above the line or to the left of the line if it's a vertical one, right? So I'm going to click, double click. I'm going to click and drag this up and then let go. Let's do it again. Click on the dimension. Now it's going to do the last, click on the dimension symbol up here. It's going to do the last setting. So we don't have to, once we set it, we should be good for dimensions. I'm going to do this vertical one here. I'm going to click here, click. Then we'll click the edge of the cabinet right here, click and move away, click. Continue adding all the dimensions to the plan. Dimensions are going to be to the left of the line or above the line always. I'm going to make the notes layer active and current. And for the next information I'm going to put on the drawings, I will use my scrapbook. There's a scrapbook right here. Open that up. When you open up your scrapbooks, does it look something like this? Notice that it says arrows, curved, whatever, and then there's a little arrow over here, there's a little arrow over here. If you click on that, you get other arrows. See that? If I click and drag these arrows into my project here, I'll have that arrow in my project. Click on this little down triangle and you'll see we've got cars, colors, people, signs, blah, 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 blah. We've got all these different things here that are come with it. And towards the bottom, there should be one that says J.a.L. That's the one I gave you. Click on J.a.L. And the first page looks something like this. On the first one, represents 1, there's a north arrow. Click and drag and let go, and it pops right in there. Right. Since we rotated the plan and we brought it into layout, we're also going to need to rotate the north arrow. North is towards the left. If you click on it, you see that same bounding box, and you see the same move symbol, and you see the same turn symbol, right? It's a little rotate symbol here and everything. Let's put it first to the side here a little bit. That's the first thing I want to do. And I'm not going to use this rotate. I'm not going to use this rotate, because if I do this rotate, I rotate the words too. I don't want to do that. I'm going to double click once. By double clicking once, I've gone inside that. Just like going inside a component, the world turns grayed out. This world turned grayed out. And if I click on the circle, I now have another turning symbol. And this I'll rotate 90 degrees. And then click away and click away. I like the word north to stay rectilinear to the page. It's supposed to be that way. If I was drawing this by hand, that's how I would do it. Click the down triangle or the little pages to get to the next page. This next page references to, I have this one, this piece here. If I click and drag and drop it over here, I can double click on the word drawing and I can change it to floor plan, right? I can change the scale to 1/2 inch equals a foot. So all these parts of the scrapbook can then be brought into the drawing and adjusted as necessary for the specific drawing information you need. Let's zoom up on the top here. Let's kind of talk a little bit about writing notes ourselves. So we still have the notes layers as active. So I'm going to use this label tool, and I'm going to make sure when I click on this label tool, I want to double check some things. Under the text style, I want it to be arch quick narrow, regular, and 12 point. This will make sure that the text height on the dimensions and on my leaders are all matching. So I click on this label here. Go to this label, arch quick narrow, regular, 12 point. Click on shape style, and my stroke, 0.25 for the thickness, 0.5 for the, there's no dashes, it's going to be solid line, so no dashes. The start arrow, 2 point is fine. The end arrow, let's change that to straight. I don't want a dot at the end of my arrow. So now we click on that. And I'm going to right here and say like upper cabinets or something. I'm going to click and drag and let go. And click again and type in upper cabinets. Oops, make sure it's all caps. Click away. So a click, drag, click, and then click again and start writing it. If I click and drag, I'm going to get a curved line. And then I can use the select tool, and I can grab these grips and change my arc how I want it to be, how I want that arc to look. I tend to like smooth, simple arcs, but some firms like to look exotic. When you double click on it, you can also reposition where the arrow is. Maybe you want to point there, you want to point over here exactly, or whatever, if you didn't do it right, or if you change your mind as you work on the project. All right, let's do a different way. So click on this label tool again. All the settings should still be the same. In this case, I'm going to click here. I'm going to type in this as a knee wall. Click, move, no dragging, just move, click, move, click, and then we'll type in knee wall. So if I do click and drag, I get a curved line. If I do click, move, click, I get a straight edge line. So depending which way you want it to, you can change that. The words refrigerator, dishwasher, and stuff are words that we can just drag over. Let me show you where the words are. It's in Scrapbook under Plan 2. So if you look at Plan 2, there it is. I can just use the word, see the word refrigerator, click and drag it over here, let go, there it is. Sync with disposal, click and drag over here, let go, there it is. So that's a quick way. So if you have these scrapbooks, you can really note up a drawing quite a bit. And on top of that, it'll remind you, oh yes, that's right, I need to put a mirror over this wall or something because I have the mirror symbol there or whatever. And of course, all of these are just text, so I can just double click and change them, right? They're just simple, like little blocks you can drag in.
Sometimes when you bring in these text boxes, you make it a little red arrow in the corner, and that just means that basically you're not seeing the whole word or the whole sentence. And a couple things you can do. One, you can right click and make them unbounded, which means that that box is not bounding them, and sometimes that'll clean it right out, it'll stretch it out. Other times you might just want to grab the corner and just kind of pull it out a little bit so that basically the bounding box gets larger so you see the whole text. Similar thing happens with the text box. Sometimes you'll get this little red arrow and it says, hey, you're not seeing everything here. And sure enough, what you might want to do is go right into, double click to go into the text box and stretch it out. You could also make it unbounded. So the same two options are available to you in this way. Continue to add scrapbook elements, dimensions, notes, all in the correct layers to complete the plan drawing.
So let's save this, file save. So we saved the layout file, and now we're going into SketchUp. So I'm going to click on floor plan because I need to get underneath the ceiling to get this to work. Now, there's different ways we can do this. One way is to create a section plane, just like we did before, it's just sideways and move it in. And you can do that. But I like this other technique. We use this in the hotel, and I think it works pretty well. It's using the position camera tool. So click on the position camera tool. I'm going to get right there, click and drag up and let go. It should look like that. So I'm looking at this, but the top's been cut off. We have the section plane still going on here, right? So now I will go up here to this view and take off the section plane. So it's looking something like this. At this point, I'm not going to use zoom extents, but instead zoom and pan to position the view and get it into the screen better. And I don't want to use orbit. Okay, I just want to use the zoom. In this case, I do want my colors to be visible because remember we colored the walls. So we got the wall coloring on there. So I'm going to click on the wall colors, and I see my cabinet colors and my wall colors all come in nicely. My cabinets look odd. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of that in the next step. This is really what it looks like, by the way. If you look in the model and look behind the cabinets I gave you, they're like, there's holes. There's nothing back there. There's no cabinet behind there because I didn't need it for models. I want to make my model light, and so this is how I did that. We're also seeing in here the door beyond. This is the sliding glass door through the bedroom door. So it's several layers deep. We're looking eternally back out that way. Let's make a scene. It's a plus symbol for scene, because this looks right now. Save as a new style. Again, I like to do that. It's a safety thing. We'll purge at the end and get rid of scenes and styles we're not using, but right now that's what I want. And I call it kitchen elevation. Kitchen elevation 1. Now, if we make a mistake in orbit, I can just click on here and come back to it the way it was, okay? So the problem with this is that we're seeing too much. When people look at this on a 2D drawing, it's going to be very confusing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add something called fog. If you don't see fog over here, go to Window, Default Tray, and make sure fog is selected. All right. So one of the first things I do is click on Display Fog, because that's typically off, and typically we don't want it. And all of a sudden you see something happen. It's going to look a little different. That sliding glass door doesn't look quite as strong. And I've used that like this a little bit so that we still have that view, but it doesn't become totally gone. In this sense, it makes a lot better if it's just not there altogether. So let's say you have an angled wall or something, or you have an L-shaped room and one wall is further back from the other. I've used this fog to denote that wall steps further back, but you still see the wall. In this case, I don't want to see that. This is another room altogether. That's the bedroom on this one, and we don't need that. So I'm going to, on this back one here, this is 100%. I'm going to click and move it forward towards the front until there's nothing there. I don't want to see anything at all in that opening. In this opening here. I don't want to see anything at all in this opening. Now, by doing that, by bringing it forward, I now have the front pieces looking a little ghosty-like, right? I mean, look at how light this looks here. I don't want that at all. So I'm going to take the front number and move it back until it becomes solid. And I want this to be as solid as possible. It could be something like that, right? That looks pretty solid. And yet I don't see the door beyond. I'm going to right-click over here and update this scene. So what did we do with that? Well, let's take a look here a sec. So the two parts of fog, this back one says that after this plane, you will see 0 of the model. Nothing is visible past this plane. And the front one is saying everything before this plane is 100% visible, crystal clear. And between these two, that's where things start to become fuzzy. It goes from solid to very fuzzy to. So all I did is I moved this forward, moved the one back, so that what we're seeing is just the front. Now, I could also have created a rectangle and drawn it and put it in position like this, see, like that, and made it white, so it looks white. And when you look at it, it looks just like what we did. I just prefer using the fog. I don't need any extra geometry in my model to be taken care of. Fog is just a style setting. When I don't want it, it won't be there. Notice that we might have some funny things in our model, like look at the wall. On yours, the wall might be funny, weird looking. Maybe mine has that cabinet open. Yours may or may not have a cabinet open. So some weird things here. When we put it in layout, we'll clean it up. Let's go ahead and save this and then switch back to layout. Now, whenever we save our SketchUp model, we've got to do an update for this one as well. If you go File, Document Setup, it should say under References, it should say our cabin kitchen out of date. And it is. We just saved it just now. So click on that and click on Update. We now have that new scene tab. So now I'm going to add a page to this. I can go to the Pages setting here and hit the plus sign, or up here in the toolbar, I can hit the plus sign here. Either way, I'm going to add a page. And it's going to look like this. On page 2, some words came over, some did not. If you go back to page 1, you can click on page 1, either click it here to go back to page 1, or these buttons. This is Next, Previous. We see that we've got these title blocks, and some of the title block says every page, and it even has a symbol. See the symbol here? Because here it says only on this page, only on this page, only on this page. Here it says on multiple pages. If you click on this, you can change it to multiple pages or not. The items that were copied onto the second page we created automatically were items on that every page layer. That's the ones that traveled over. We can tell the difference too, because the word floor plan here, if you click on this, there's a blue box. Click on your name, it's a blue box. Click on the word cabin kitchen, it's a red box. Red box is a visual clue that, hey, this is an every page item. Clicking on page 2, we realize we need to copy that text from the first page and get over here. So let's go click back to page 1. Click on the word floor plan, this area here. Hold the control key, click on your name, the date, and the sheet or name. So there's 4 items that did not transfer over. And then go to Edit Copy. Click on the next page and then do Edit Paste. And they should all come right back in. Add another page. Hit the plus here. Here's add a new page, hit the plus. And then go Edit Paste again. By the way, if I click this middle one, I would have copied that page with the text on there and everything. So that's another way of doing it too, if you have it set up. Okay, so now we've got our 3 pages. You see page 1, page 2, page 3 here. So page 3 is my current page right now. I'm going to change that to be what it needs to be on that page. And I'm going to write here perspective and schedule. So this perspective and schedule changes here, and this down here is now I7.01. And that's again because it's a perspective and a schedule sheet. So I put it on 7. If we go to page 2, this will be I4.01 because this is the interior elevation. I'm going to write in here and type in interior elevations. I'm going to make my viewport layer unlocked, and I'm going to make it active. I want to be the active layer. I'm going to go File, Insert, and go ahead and give out the name, and click on Open. And it might open up right to this view, which is great. That's our last view we saved. If it doesn't open up to that last view, if you go to the SketchUp model here, just make sure kitchen elevation 1 is the scene that's coming in. The scale is going to be 1/2 inch equals a foot. And that'll lock it on resize. And now I'm going to make my size, clicking the end, the sides about halfway through the door. We're going to cut through, let's say, and a little bit more of the wall. Something like that, right? About that much visibility. And I'm going to drag it, click and drag it down. Okay, we'll click away. I'm done moving and positioning it. This is also 1/2 inch equals a foot. A lot of times interior elevations are a little larger than floor plans, let's say. And they could be even larger depending on the detail. You could have a pretty good size 1 inch equals a foot, depending on how much detail is going on. But here's what I'm talking about, right? We have this funky thing going on in the kitchen here. I gotta show the cross side view and things like that. It's not quite what I'm looking for. If you take a look on the drawings that we've been following along, this is what it looks like. So I kind of want to make it match that kind of a look, right? I don't want to see all this other extra stuff that is coming in here that I don't want to have. So click on the line tool. In this line, I'm going to set it up to go. I want this to be a thicker kind of line eventually. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my shape style. Make sure to take the fill off. For the stroke, black is fine, but I want it to be thicker. So I'm going to type in 2. I want to have some thickness to it. The dashes, we don't want dashes, we want a solid line. So at this point, whether it's 0.5, it doesn't really matter because it's a solid line. So 2 is really the important part, and this is solid line, and then the rest can be whatever it is because it doesn't matter. There's no arrows on this or this. I'm going to start like here somewhere with my line tool. Click. I'm going to go across to here. Click. And we'll go down to here. Click. And over across to here. And this one you have to kind of eyeball a little bit. If at this point you see a white shape appear as you trace the model, it means that the shape style settings have reverted to the default and the fill is on. Just go to the fill setting and turn it off and continue tracing. And over across to here, and this one you have to kind of eyeball a little bit. Click, eyeball here a little bit, click, 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 straight down, click, over, click, and straight down to here, around the perimeter of the countertop and the cabinet, the toe kick. And then at this point, when I see that line kind of show up here, I'm going to go straight up and close it off. So that is the line. So it should look something like this. When you click on it, you should get that bluing of the line, and then go to Edit, Copy. Then I want you to hold the Control key down and select the background. So now we've got the line and the viewport. So I'm going to right-click and select Create Clipping Mask. And when we do that, the background all goes away. And all I have is this view like that. Then go to Edit, Paste. And the shape we copied comes back. And it's exactly where the other line was. So when you do clipping mask, that line disappears, right? The line we drew disappears. So by copying it first, so there's actually 2 lines really, one we're seeing, one we're not seeing. One other thing to do, we don't want this edge to be here. We needed it. We need to have an enclosed shape to create clipping masks. But if we were drawing by hand, we would not have a line there. There's no edge there. This tool is called the split tool. So let's look at this one. This was the erase tool, pick up the style tool, split tool, and join tool. Join tool is like the weld tool in SketchUp where you can put lines together, become one line. Split basically splits it apart. I'm going to click on the split tool. And you see my cursor becomes this little knife edge kind of deal. I'm going to click on this corner right here. When you get close to it, it says on point, click. Okay. And then down here, click. So basically, I've used a split tool on both ends, here and here. Then I can use my eraser tool and erase it, or I can use Select Delete. Let's go save this. File save. Hard to snap to where you want to snap to because we have that crown molding. And we typically don't dimension cabinetry to a crown molding. We dimension to the actual cabinet box. So create a new tag called trim and put all our crown molding on the trim tag. Then make a scene with the trim tag visible and a new scene where the trim tag is not visible. After these changes, save the SketchUp model. Switch back to Layout and update the model. we would now have the possibility of switching between having the trim visible or not, which would make dimensioning to the exact line easier. I tend not to use auto scale anymore. I just tend to type in the scale I want, I select it, which means you do have to be careful because many times you do things at 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/8 inch, or whatever. And so you want to make sure you have the right scale, otherwise the text won't be right. But this is what happens with auto scale. Every now and then, it just switches on me. And notice this, yes, if I took a scale to the actual piece of paper, it'll be 1/2 inch long, but the object that I'm scaling, the scale factor I'm using is supposed to be 2 feet. Now, I'm just telling you that happens. And we would bring in the notes and the dimensions here. We'd go back to and put our notes. And these would be the colors of the walls, the colors of the knobs we use, the Formica information. We'd put that information down here. And then we'd put in the interior elevation symbol from here. We'd bring him over from that scrapbook. And then we would take off what we don't need. We would take off the fill in certain areas that we aren't using. We'd put the right numbers here for the right views we're looking at.
We would do similar steps that we did for the first elevation view to get the second one, going back to the SketchUp model, using our position camera tool, click and drag, let go, going to the construction document style and taking off the section cut. At this point, I want to zoom in a little bit and then go to scenes and add a scene. Save as a new style. And let's call it Kitchen Elevation 2. Make the trim tag not visible. And then add another scene, Kitchen Elevation 2 no trim. Making sure that we did not zoom or pan. So if I click on Elevation 2 and Kitchen Elevation 2 no trim, it's not being moved. And then we do the same steps of bringing it into the layout, adding notes and dimensions. And then go File, Save. To make the island views, same way. We position the camera here and go that way. We let go of the camera. You'll have a view something similar to this. Make sure you get it to construction document, take off that section cut, and then add fog until you don't see anything in the background. Save the scene. Do the same the other way, going from here this way. You'd get this kind of a view. And you'd go ahead and use fog again and make another scene. And then just position it on sheet number 1, pretty much in this situation. Again, note it up and mark it up. These A's and B's should match here. So A is looking this way. I'm sure that's what we're seeing. B is looking this way, and it's on sheet 1. And A and B here are on sheet I4.
All right, let's go back to our SketchUp model here. We want to show the client a perspective view of the interior. And let's go to camera, perspective, and then zoom extents. Take off the fog because the fog's gonna make it look like there's nothing. If you put fog on, you won't see it, but I want a perspective view of the inside. A lot of times you're gonna have a cabinetry in perspective view, so we want to have that so the client sees that. Go to your tags, make ceiling not visible. I want to be able to get in here. And put this little person again, this person position camera, because it's perspective, we'll get a perspective view. So click on here, and I'm gonna click on this corner back in here, click on this corner and drag it diagonally to this view and let go. It should look something like this. You might need to pan up or pan down a little bit, maybe. You may not, I had to. And I'm gonna do something like this. You want about this much, and then make the ceiling tag visible again. And put the doors back on so we have doors. So go to Scene Manager here and add a scene. I'm gonna call it Perspective. I'm gonna save this model. We'll go back into layout. And what are we going to do in layout? We're going to update the document. File, document setup, references, update. Click on the next button here. So this is now our perspective page. Let's go to File, Insert, go back to our cabin. And this one's going to look something like this. And I got quite a bit of outside space. I want to make this image even a little bit larger. Yours might not have this problem. Notice as I resize the bounding box, the whole image resizes proportionally. So if I went down smaller, it keeps the same kind of area around the piece and everything, the same perspective proportions. But I want this large. I want this a little larger so I have a little bit more cabinetry I'm looking at. And then I can crop some of that outside area away. And then once I have it to the size of the cabinetry I want, because I'm looking at this view here, I'm not looking at the wall over here. I'm not going to keep this area on the sides. I just want this area here to be big enough to make it interesting. I will go back to this under SketchUp model. Oh, I'm going to click on Preserve Scale on Resize. I'm going to preserve scale for SketchUp model. I'm going to preserve scale on Resize. Now, when I move my grips in, the model will not resize. The image portion will stay the same size. And I can crop closer to the areas I want. And then I can click and drag this and position it how I want on the page. One other thing, when I click on it, it's in the viewport layer, so this is good. If it wasn't a viewport layer, I could right click, move to layer, and change the layer it's on. So I was in the viewport layer when I did this, so that's perfect. I can also move by the arrow keyboards too. Sometimes I use those because I kind of like the way they, they can be more exact if I want to. Let's go ahead and lock it. I always like to lock my viewports. The next thing I want to do is bring in the schedule. Although we could use the table features in layout, I found that actually making the schedule in Excel and then bring it into layout is a quicker way. So into your SketchUp folder, into the lectures portion you downloaded, module 12, layout, there's an appliance schedule XLSX file. Open it up. And you can see it's all ready to go. And what I like to do is you select this area down here, just click and drag to select it. I'm not going to select the title because when you bring it in, it doesn't like to expand across the column. So select these area, right click, copy, and then go into layout, right click, paste. The schedule comes in. Got to size it a little bit. Let's zoom up a little bit. I'm just going to scroll wheel to zoom up. And then what I want to do is I want to put a title bar across the top. So I double click on it to select the whole table. And over here, I want to make sure it's going to be Arial, regular, and 12 point. I'm just going to click on that. You can see the text got a little bit bigger. I'm going to click away. And it looks pretty good. So the next thing I'll do is I will give it a title. I'll use the text tool. So I want to make sure that I've got the right heading, Arial, narrow, regular, 12 point. I want it centered, because it'll be centered over the box I'm making. I want it to be towards the top. And then I'd like to have it no fill, a stroke of 1.5, a black stroke. Make a rectangle here. Now I type in appliance. Schedule. And then I'll select it. I'll just kind of move it down a little bit. It should be close here and here. It may not snap, but that's okay. All right, and then kind of I'll move it down a little bit. And then I'll make a regular rectangle with the same setting for the whole box. I'm going to adjust this just a little bit here. Kind of. And then also the inner box too. So that looks pretty good. It gets the appliance information on there. This page looks complete. Let's save this. So the assignment is to have all three sheets turned in, exported out as one PDF,
and then upload it to Talon. And this assignment is worth 3 points and can receive partial credit. One more thing to know about LayOut is that it can be used for presentation.
It's like a PowerPoint presentation. You can mark it up, you can make notes. What I love about it is that when you exit out of view presentation, you can say, do you want to save the changes? You say yes, and it creates a separate layer that you can turn on and off with those notes, which is really convenient. If you talk to a client, you circle something, say, I can look at that, I don't like this, and move this over. At the end, you have a record of what was talked about on what time, on what day, and so forth. Inside the layout folder I gave you, there's a setup layout PDF. It shows different ways of customizing the program. Things you can do, like how to create new keyboard shortcuts, how to create new toolbars up at the top. We're not going to use that. We don't have enough time in this lecture to do it all. I just want you to know it exists. I have also another PDF that has more architectural looking, so you have exterior views. For more practice, you have a hotel file, and you've got a hotel PDF that knows what kind of words need to go on there. You can play around with this program some more on your own. I use the 11 by 17 sheet and be able to do this. Some books recommended to you, so you can take a look at that. I think this one's a very good middle of the road one here. Pretty good. This tells you how to make up your own title block, for example, and how to make it look certain ways. How I made all my graphics. All my graphics I made using information from this book. Good books, worth looking into. This one here is pretty good. It's got ideas, but it goes into other places. It has more SketchUp stuff as well. This guy's all about organizing and setting things up and getting a template file used over and over. But this is the Nick Saunders. It's a little heavy on the landscape and how to get the landscaping to come into SketchUp and how to also to make it look right when you take it to layout. Hopefully this brief introduction to layout will help you see that it is an important feature of working with SketchUp. So the assignment recap at the end of every session: export a multi-page PDF of this cabin kitchen and upload to Talon.